Hey everyone. Today I want to. Really? The camera screwed up about the second I freaking started the video. So, I know I'm uploading a Souls video like pretty much every day right now, but there is a reason for this. Elden Ring is coming in February, or it's supposed to, and I've seen the magic in that game, and I've seen the Twin Blades. With this knowledge, I feel like I'm going to be playing a lot of Elden Ring come February. So I really want to get as much non-Elden Ring Souls content on the channel as I can before then. Anyways, today I want to look at the Reinforced Club. And I'm not kidding here. On pretty much a soul level 30 build, this thing was getting over 300 AR at plus 3 heavy infused. And no, I didn't dump everything into strength. I had about 31 health at the time and about 30 strength. This is a build I have sort of been turning into sort of a SMO build. That's what all the vitality is about. That's why I have so much vitality. So something I was using at the time was Flynn's ring, and I was naked. But even without that, we're still getting an AR of 281 on a ultimately well, it's a fast weapon. Look at this. At plus 4, this thing is that fast. It has an A scaling in strength. An A scaling in strength. At plus 4. And this thing hits like a truck. Also, when you use the weapon art Warcry, damage jumps up to 308. And this is without the Flynn's ring, which if I were to take all this crap off, don't know why those were on, and put the Flynn's ring on, look at that. It jumps up to 343. But because it's so light, you can also use a pretty hefty set of armor. Whoops. Like the Cathedral Knight set, one of my favorite sets in the game. It looks aesthetically pleasing to me. This thing is also really good one-handed, so if you wanted to use a shield with it, you could. And this thing clobbers stuff. I used this against the Abyss Watchers. It wasn't the easiest fight ever, even though I had really high damage and health. One big weakness to this weapon is its moveset. Its moveset gives it deceivingly bad range. And ultimately, because it pretty much has one move in the R1, I don't know. I don't really like that it only has the one move. It's a very simple weapon to use and really good for a beginner, especially because you can just grab it before the Curse-Rotted Greatwood fight. It's literally in the arrow volley area. That's what I call it. The area in front of the dilapidated bridge. Which is very early. And if you wanted to do sort of a glass cannon strength build using the Flynn's ring, I'd say this is the weapon to do it with, because it just hits so hard. Like, I wasn't too big a fan of strength for a while, but I might give it some more love with axes and hammers. However, if you want to do something similar with just simply a better weapon, just go Dex and use the Lothric Knight Sword. It doesn't have as much stagger or hyper armor, but in exchange it's faster, its moveset and range are significantly better, and it still hits very, very hard for a straight sword. Which, if you want proof of how strong the Lothric Knight straight sword is, watch the first two parts of my new Dark Souls 3 playthrough, and you'll see the thing's freaking power. As for this weapon, you're seeing just how well it beats up Pontiff Knights. I'd say the mace would probably get better damage, but on top of its physical AR, this thing has another advantage that makes it good for strength or holo. Because this thing is heavily a strength weapon. I looked on Souls Planner what it would look like on a quality build. Since it has no natural scaling on anything but strength, this Fire Witch is getting very annoying. And the fact that there's two of them is a problem. Because it only gets natural scaling of strength, and it gets like a base scaling of a C in strength, which is kind of nuts. I never come this way because there's two freaking Fire Witches. Yeah, those Fire Witches were screwing me up. But yeah, honestly, if you want to use a hammer on a holo build, you pretty much have to use the reinforced club. To my knowledge, there is no such thing as a hammer with bleed other than the reinforced club. Or poison or anything. Not naturally. And that's the thing. You want... On a holo build, you want an infusible weapon with an auxiliary effect, or you want Henri's, basically. One thing to note, though, even though this is not set up for bleed damage, it's not hard to tell. This thing is crap at proccing bleed. So, it's not going to do that very well. And honestly, it's just better on a strength build. What the heck is happening? But ultimately, if you want to use a hammer on a holo build, then the only good hammer for a holo build is the reinforced club, because no other hammer, not great hammer, has any auxiliary effects. To my knowledge. I know great hammers have a couple. There's Vort's great hammer. There's the spiked mace. But as far as normal hammers, there really isn't one other than the reinforced club. Which, the only issues really with this weapon are its moveset and its range. Other than that, it's pretty much an all-around really good weapon. It's fast. It is really fast. Do I have another really fast weapon here? I can't use it effectively. And yes, I did kill Yuria because I don't need her. So I can't use it effectively, but watch. 1, 2, 3. And then our rapier. 1, 2, 3. It's fast. So yeah, this thing hits very hard early on, and it's a very good weapon starting out. I'd say it's probably better later down the road to just upgrade to the mace, because when I looked on Soul's Planner, this thing gets really good damage out of upgrades and up to about 30 strength. After that, its damage scaling just sort of starts to deteriorate enormously. Pontiff Knights are annoying, so you really, early game, I would say it's one of the better hammers because upgrading it's really good damage. But once you hit 30 strength, according to Soul's Planner, its damage just starts to deteriorate. And it just becomes not so great. Now, this build is not made for the Reinforced Club, but it is what I started with because of its just insane early game damage. So, if you want to do a Reinforced Club build, if you really want to do that, I would suggest taking Strength to 30, Heavy Infusing it, upgrading it to plus 10, of course, and then put the rest of your points into having 44 Vigor, 24 to 34 Endurance, and then whatever else you want. If you want to boost up its Bleed, upgrade Luck. If you want to be more tanky, upgrade Vitality and get some really heavy armor. You could probably use Smo's armor pretty easily with this weapon, because you would only be taking strength to about 30. This weapon does not even really hit 500 AR. So, that damage you see right there, considering mine is only plus 4, most of your damage is going... You're gonna have most of your damage already by 30 strength. You might get maybe 40 extra points by going to the meta of 66 strength. But ultimately, according to what I found with the build on Soul's Planner, it's not going to net you very much damage past 30 strength, which gives you a lot of breathing room. You can take your Vigor to 44, the cap, your Endurance to 34, the cap, and then pour the rest into whatever you want. I didn't look at how much you would have at a meta level left over. But you could pretty much do whatever you wanted at that point. I wouldn't recommend going for anything like Dexterity, because the thing just has really bad dex scaling. It's not a quality weapon. All your dex damage would come from the Refined Infusion. It is bad on dex. It gets almost nothing from dex. In fact, I looked at a build with 60 strength, 60 dexterity, just for reference, with a Refined Infusion, and it was netting less damage than 30 strength with a Heavy Infusion. Now, considering I'm two-handing it, so it's more like 45 strength, still, it gives you a lot of breathing room. You could go Faith and use Lightning or Healing Miracles You could go intelligence for something like a weapon buff to make it hit even harder. You could go luck, which that's another thing. If you were to use this on a hollow build, you would still have 30 strength because hollow does not hinder the strength scaling so much. So actually, that might be something worth looking into on Souls Planner. Luck. Hollow build might actually get more damage because its strength scaling seems to cap at 45 overall. So 30 if you two-hand it. Honestly, I really like this weapon because of all the breathing room you get. I don't really need, according to Souls Planner, any more strength. As for scaling, again, we already have an A in strength. Granted, the clubs just do get good damage. At least the better clubs. The generic club gets crappy damage and, believe it or not, has less range in this thing. It is lighter, but only by 1.4. It's not much. I'd say probably the best way to use this weapon, since you have so much breathing room, would actually be decently heavy armor. I'm talking about PvP here. Even though I've never done it, I can see this pretty well. And then using a great shield. I'd say something like Cathedral Knight armor, or if you really wanted a big great shield, Millwood. And then just use, I don't even know, like the Moaning Shield. Well, no, you wouldn't be using the Moaning Shield because that requires 50 strength. And this thing's strength scaling seems to cap pretty much at 45. Like, really, I wasn't getting, when I looked on Souls Planner, it wasn't getting much additional damage after 45 strength total. And most of its damage does come from upgrading it, not scaling. Wouldn't you have gotten whacked? Whatever. And I used to, oh, for the love of, I used to, really hate on the two clubs in the game, the small clubs, that is, because they just didn't hit very hard for hammers. What I didn't take into account is how early their damage caps allows you to have other aspects of the build. If you wanted to have a dark blade build with a hammer, this is the weapon I would suggest doing it with. But yeah, honestly, the reinforced club is good. Like, it would struggle in PvP, I would imagine, because of the fact that it doesn't get as much damage as other hammers would overall, and it's moveset in range pose some unique problems among the hammer class. I mean, basically what you're looking at with this thing, as far as range, is a slower mail breaker with a worse moveset. And this is, I'm talking about a one-handed mail breaker, not two-handed. So because that's not thrusting, that's even worse range. Really, I rolled that. But, yeah, I'd say it's a very good weapon in PvE, or to use with a shield. But as a two-handed weapon in PvP, I wouldn't imagine it being too great, other than maybe on a hollow build. Again, I haven't looked into a hollow version. What the? Got stuck on that tree somehow. I don't know how this guy is just like magically out of range on the third hit every time. It doesn't make any sense to me. But this thing is a very good weapon, I would say. Built correctly, just because it does get viable damage on very little strength, which gives you a lot of breathing room. So that's really all I had to say about the weapon. It's simple, but effective. Which, I gotta say, I really like that because it's realistic. Fear the stick. Okay. It's not as good as other weapons, but like a real stick, it's a stick. It's not going to hit as hard as metal versions of it, because it just wouldn't have as much weight. But as a lightweight clubbing weapon, it is effective. Last thing I want to say about it is Walking Dead reference here. The reinforced club kind of reminds me of Lucille. If you don't know what Lucille is, either watch The Walking Dead or Google Walking Dead Lucille, and you'll get what I mean. You'll understand why it reminds me of Lucille. And if you have seen The Walking Dead, you'll know exactly which character it's related to. And if you wanted to do a cosplay of that character, which I might, this would be the weapon you would use. That might be an interesting video, actually. A cosplay of that character. I mean, obviously it's not exact. It just reminds me of the weapon, which is interesting. So, that's just spiked mace. Bleh. Reinforced club. As of now, one of my favorite hammers. I'll see you all next time.